Hello everybody, welcome back to Thiege's Notebook Review. I'm your host Joel Michael, and what I have for you today is from MSI. This is the GE66 Raider. It's an expensive 15.6-inch notebook that promises exquisite performance from an upper-end Intel Core i7 and Nvidia RTX 3070. You already know these specs can game, but how well does the notebook rate overall? Let's find out. Before I get into the review, here's a reminder to give this video a like and leave any questions or comments you might have about the notebook or life in general down below. Full disclosure, XoticPC reached out to me personally via a targeted ad on my Facebook newsfeed and even offered to send me a more expensive unit, which I saw in said advertisement, but I said to myself it wasn't necessary and admitted I'd be okay with settling for just this, which they sent out after I paid them full MSRP. What's cool about XoticPC is they perform some nifty services where they test the display to make sure it's higher grade and run stress tests to ensure reliability before shipping the notebook out. I also opted for the IC Diamond thermal paste option, so thermals during gameplay might be interesting. Unfortunately, when you order through XoticPC, you also get their tacked on label, which in this case is slightly crooked. At least it's possible to take off cleanly with a decent prying tool and some elbow grease. When shopping for this particular model, I found it first from XoticPC's Newegg profile. I wrote an email to Exotic asking what the difference is between ordering on Newegg and their website, but they never answered me back. Shortly after my email, the Newegg listing was removed. This then is the MSI GE66 Raider. It uses the Intel Core i7-10870H CPU that clocks 16 megabytes of L3 cache up to 5 GHz across 8 cores and 16 threads, eating up 45 watts. It's mated to the Nvidia RTX 3070 GPU that soaks up 130 watts and uses 8 gigs of GDDR6 VRAM. This particular unit came with 32 gigs of DDR4 3200 memory and a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. These bits sit underneath a 15.6-inch 1080p IPS screen that refreshes 300 times a second and is powered by a 99 watt-hour battery, the largest possible battery you can squeeze inside of a notebook. The included AC adapter comes with a 6-foot umbilical cord and 6 foot from the wall cord, giving you 12 feet of social distance away from your wall. Normally, manufacturers only include a 3-foot from the wall cord, so it's cool to see a longer one here. With it, you can charge the notebook to full, 80%, or even as low as 60% in order to preserve the lifespan of the battery. The battery life of the MSI GE66 is whatever you want it to be, depending on how much extra work or sacrifice you're willing to put into it. Nvidia's control panel can be used to set the preferred GPU to integrated graphics and enjoy hours upon hours, or you can set it to automatically switch and get 2 hours without tweaks, 3 hours after setting the monitor to 60 Hz and max CPU speed to 50 or 60%. There's still more technical stuff you can do, like undervolting the CPU, uninstalling Dragon Center, or turning off the pretty lights, but really the biggest thing by far is disabling the RTX 3070 in Nvidia control panel. You'll know you're getting the bestest ever battery life when the power button glows white, meaning you're using Intel's integrated graphics. An orange light indicates you're using dedicated graphics. The Raider shows very little flex when pressing down anywhere on the body, and the keyboard is very rigid while typing. The display panel is incredibly sturdy and doesn't shake at all if you're a light typist. It would be nicer if it was an aluminum shell, but these plastics are more than satisfactory and extremely durable. That's not to say they don't accumulate fingerprints. Oh no, it's made very apparent when bare hands use the palm rest or manipulate the keyboard. It does come with a very large microfiber cleaning cloth, which is absolutely terrible because now there's no excuse for having a stained PC. It's also among the heaviest and thickest of 15.6-inch notebooks, possibly even heavier than the Dell G3. It's positively imposing and definitely not understated. Let's see what all those holes in the side do. On the right, there's two USB-A 3.2 Gen 1 ports and a card reader. The left side grants us a USB-A 3.2 Gen 2 port, USB-C 3.2 Gen 2, and a headset in. But wait, there's more up the rear with mini DisplayPort, USB-C Gen 4, Gigabit LAN, HDMI that'll output 4K in 120Hz, and the power hole. Seems like a shame there's no Thunderbolt on a $2,500 notebook, but you'll get by, since no external GPUs can come close to a baked-in RTX 3070, and there are 2 slots for NVMe SSDs, possibly negating the need for fast external storage. There's also enough video outs to run 3 monitors, granted you have the right dongles. Getting into the Raider's knickers is not without its challenges. 2 different sizes of screws means you should definitely leave yourself a diagram, and a decent prying tool by your side will help you separate the several plastic grips. Getting the bottom cover to fit back on properly was also an exercise in patience. Once inside, we can see that the battery is pretty damn big, heat pipes take up a not-so-modest portion of the real estate, the 2 memory slots are already taken, and there's an open PCIe slot ready and waiting for another NVMe SSD. There are black covers over everything, but they can be easily peeled off, although I wouldn't recommend it for concerns regarding static electricity. The keyboard on the GE66 is excellent, one of the best I've used. No, it doesn't have a numpad, but there are full-sized home, end, and page scrolling keys to the right in very convenient locations. The key travel is very predictable, and the action is dead silent, where most of the noise is absorbed by the body of the notebook. I never miss any keys at the fault of the keyboard, and yes, it lights up. The software for this SteelSeries keyboard is the most flexible I've used yet, where fully customized zones of keys can be configured together, allowing perhaps just the outside keys to remain a static color while the letter keys go crazy, or vice versa. Of course, flexible software is synonymous with complicated, and yeah, it took me a while to figure out to first highlight the keys I wanted to edit, then change their settings on the left. It's very easy to lose yourself in the color menu while there are no keys highlighted, and you might as well be taking a video of your wife admitting she's wrong, except you forgot to press the record button. One big gripe I have over the backlight is that the colors aren't really hit or miss, it's miss or miss even more. You'll never get a perfect white, and while there are a plethora of colors available, their real-life counterparts never fully mimic what you're seeing on screen, and for those as nitpicky as myself, there will be a lot of back and forth with the software to find something suitable. And if this is how you use your notebook all the time, shame on you. This looks like RuPaul's neglected unicorn got into the Kardashian stash of spare silicone parts and vomited this notebook out the next morning. Anyone who uses this 24/7 needs professional help, and so does Caitlyn Jenner. The touchpad on this MSI notebook is just fine. It doesn't get in the way while typing, it'll do what you ask it to, and gestures register appropriately. It can be disabled via hotkey or by plugging in a mouse. Now I gotta ask, how much money do I have to fork out to get a touchpad with physical keys? Give me a freaking number, I wanna know. At least there's no tacky backlight in, on, or around the touchpad. Onto the display. Yes, it's awesome to play games on. 300Hz is an incredible experience, and you'll get all the sRGBs possible. The brightness can register 2 ticks over comfortably bright, and just dim enough for a pitch black room. The matte screen does a fine job of deflecting light, but the brightness fades at a close angle, and colors grow slightly more red in extreme points of view. The colors don't pop like on some Lenovo's, and the pixels are oh so slightly red, so there's good reason for professional calibration, especially since the banding is excellent but still not perfect. For all intents and purposes, an OLED screen would still be slightly better for working or digesting video. And if you're wondering if a 300Hz screen has finally caught up to old school CRTs as far as ghosting, I gotta say this comes pretty damn close, but it's still not quite there yet. Am I being too nitpicky? I can easily admit that I am, but when paying $2,500 for a notebook, you'd better damn well be aware that while this display is awesome in its own right, this ain't no all singing, all dancing crap of the world. Next up are the speakers. For paying over $2,000, you get 2 of them. They make noise, and don't sound like an old radio. There's very little bass that comes through, and the tippity top of the treble spectrum is also cut off. Average is the best way to describe them. The bass line in Rage Against the Machine's Calm Like a Bomb is barely audible, and these speakers try their damnedest to erase the bass line from the package by a perfect circle from all of history. The revisionist bastards. At least they're dignified enough to not use EQ software to pull bass tones into the treble range, which leads to softening of heavy guitar parts, and also brings out unwanted background noise in TV and movies. So at least the heavy guitar in the package still shines, it's just not very loud. They'll do in a pinch, but if you've got a good set of portable head speakers, use those instead. This is a test of the webcam here on the MSI GE66 Raider. Excellent quality. This is 1080p in excellent lighting. I have like 10 or 11 LED lights facing me in all directions. My face is a little bit overblown, so if you're going to be using your webcam in a little bit dimmer light, you'll be just fine. Or if your complexion is less fair than mine, you're also gonna be just great. And here's the test of the webcam in poor lighting. I have one LED light coming at me from this direction. You can tell because this part of my face is very much overblown, and this part of my face is actually quite red because the webcam is throwing in a lot of red pixels in order to make up for the lack of color. You can tell at this monitor right here, bunch of extra red pixels. Overall though, the color compensation is very nice. On an average laptop webcam, this side of me would be completely dark. So this is very nice. Even though the motion is suffering, of course it's suffering because it's low light, and the way it's compensating is it's actually not dropping nearly as many frames as your typical laptop webcam. The noise cancellation software is in full effect, so I'll let you judge for yourself what the difference is and how it sounds. I think they both sound pretty fantastic. Absolutely don't need to use a headset when doing webcam conversations on the MSI GE66 Raider. System performance of the GE66 is as fast as you can hope for thanks to the 3 gigs a second NVMe SSD and higher-end Intel Core i7 CPU. Remember, this is the i7-10870H with more cores and L3 cache than the mere mortal 10750. All this performance does come at a price though. The battery life suffers without disabling the RTX 3070, and the system fans just won't shut up, even when you're not doing much. I'm not sure if it's my model in particular or not, but the fans don't seem to have a constant pitch either. They seem to wind up and down in a subtle range when not gaming. It's a little annoying in a quiet environment. At least it can still be made completely silent when in battery mode, and the CPU is muzzled to just 60%. On to gaming. Holy shit, can this thing play games? If you're watching this review and so far wondering why the hell this notebook is worth over $2,000, well, I'm about to tell you. Nothing stands in the way of this RTX 3070. What can it play at a full 300 frames per second? Well, nothing. Not even Rocket League, but that's not the point of a 300Hz screen. The point is to reduce ghosting and response lag, which I assure you is reduced AF. Is it a hugely impressive amount? No. I've been using high refresh rate panels for years, and this is just another step up. If you want impressive, use a CRT. Another question to address is, does the 130-watt 3070 make ray tracing viable? Unfortunately, not yet. Highfalutin modern titles like Control or Battlefield 5 are still a mess with all of RTX on. Sure, the footage you're seeing of Battlefield reaches over 60 frames per second, but what you're not seeing is the skips and stutters that come with ray tracing enabled in the 30 FPS camera footage. When you take away the ray tracing and run the game at ultra settings, you'll regularly see over 100 frames per second, and it's smooth. At least Quake 2 RTX runs at over 60 FPS, which I can't say for the RTX 2060 in the Electronics Mech 15. Playing games with this notebook on your lap isn't a terrible experience either. Sure, it gets a little uncomfortable, but it won't scald your legs like other high-performance notebooks will. I'm looking at you, Mech 15. Plus, the heat dissipation is very effective, and no part of the keyboard or palm rest will heat up to unbearable levels. The hottest part is above the keyboard and underneath the display, which can get very hot to the touch. And despite having an industry largest battery pack, the GE66 still won't let you game at full frame rate on battery power alone. You're stuck to 30 FPS at the most. It's best to always be plugged in while gaming. For the bottom line, is the MSI GE66 Raider actually worth the $2,300 or more price tag? Ultimately, yes, but only if you're looking for these specific components, namely the faster i7 processor, 130W RTX 3070, 300Hz screen, and the biggest damn battery allowed on a plane. If you think you can get by with anything less in these areas, and believe me, it's easy to get by with less, then this notebook might not be your best fit. And now the question must be asked again: can the MSI GE66 Raider replace the Electronics Mech 15 as my daily driver? Sure, but mostly because I spent so damn much on this notebook and there's no way in hell I can sell it and walk away with less than a $400 loss. Screw that. I'll miss the numpad and display from the Mech 15, and honestly, the gaming performance of the RTX 2060 is still very satisfactory. Something to remember about the Mech 15 is it's impressively lightweight despite the high-end components. But of course, I'm still giddy for having a full-fledged RTX 3070 at my disposal, and the absolutely hugest battery ever is also pretty nice. Plus, I still do my push-ups on the regular, so the extra weight isn't that big of a deal. In conclusion, students get 3 thumbs down. The price, weight, size, and lack of a numpad all spell disaster. I always joke that you're going to buy a gaming notebook anyway because gaming notebooks are still a viable option for students most of the time, but in this case, absolutely not. If you really want gaming whatever, get a Lenovo Gaming 3i. You'll get away with more money in your pocket and still have competent peripherals. Casual gamers, this is what overkill looks like. Don't buy this. You don't need it. Get a Dell G15. Competitive gamers? Sure. You'll certainly be able to pwn in Counter-Strike thanks to the 300Hz screen, and yeah, newer games might hit about 200 if you set the detail levels to shiny potato, but that's an industry secret and I may even edit that part out of the video in the near future. Desktop replacement users, it doesn't get any better than this. 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of super fast storage with an empty space for more, plenty of display outputs, and you can even boot the UEFI with a CSM, so if you love all things DOS, you can totally go ham with this. Home users, I would laugh my ass off if I saw this notebook chilling on your coffee table with the full-blown rainbow diarrhea keyboard and light bar illuminating your $30 a pop Elton John collectible drink coasters. Oh yeah, I got this because it has pretty lights. I use it to watch cat videos, browse TikTok,
and spam pro-abortion propaganda on Facebook.
This has been a review of the MSI GE66 Raider here on Thiege's Notebook Review. If you learned something, go ahead and click the thumbs up button. Leaving comments is the best way to boost my exposure, so let me know what you thought of the review, or leave any questions or comments you might have about the notebook down below. And sure, you can subscribe too if you want. Thanks for watching, and you guys, have a good night.